Hello there. I wanted to talk about the year 2013 and the original FOI back from 2018 that was received. As we can see here, for the year of 2013 at the Countess of Chester Hospital, we've got 6 deaths in that year. We've got one post-neonatal death, one post-neonatal death there in yellow, January, 2 early in neonatal in March 2013. April 2013 has 1 early neonatal and 1 post-neonatal. And November 2013 has got 1 late neonatal. So that's between 7 and 28 days of age. So that's 6 deaths for that year, according to the 2018 FOI. And when we're looking at the 2 years of the indictment, 2015 and 2016, there's a total of 13 deaths over those 2 years at the Countess of Chester Hospital. In the neonatal unit, there's the 1 death that happens in the maternity unit, which is not on the indictment and is not classed as being a death in the neonatal unit. And then there are 4 deaths. This goes to the Thirlwall document, which we'll look at in a bit. There are 4 deaths that they list there, one of which was originally on the indictment, which was the death of baby K. But these 4 deaths happen at other hospitals. So 2015, 8 deaths on the neonatal unit and 5 in 2016. So that's an average. If you average, the mean is 6.5. But we've got 6 deaths here showing on the 2018 FOI. For 2013, what's the truth of this year? What's the truth of that year? I'm going to call up some other documents now. We're moving now to the 2025 FOI, which, according to the letter that was sent to Peter Alston, produced these results, which were very much revised for all the years, as far as we can see. And we'll look at the letter that Peter received a little bit later as to their explanation as to why they're so different. Doesn't really make much sense to me, but we're looking here at the figures highlighted in yellow. The 2013 deaths here, we've just got 2. We've got a total of 2 deaths there instead of the 6 that we saw. And these 2 deaths are happening in February of 2013 and May 2013. Now, what you'll also notice here is they're not splitting up the sections in terms of the ages of the babies. There's no splitting up of early, late, and post-neonatal. There's no separate data for stillbirths or late fetal loss, which is what I've been trying to get, and which has resulted in deeming my FOI requests, all of them, all the ones outstanding, including wanting this data restated, as vexatious and part of a campaign, and therefore it being deemed illegitimate, and they won't answer any. I'll look at that a bit later as well. So just to go back to the other one now. Yeah, it does work. I'm doing this on StreamYard. I've never done this before. I'm doing a recording. I usually do lives there, so it's all quite new to me. So what did I say about this one? This is the revised, based on their apparent researches, their so-called manual count that they did in 2023, 10 years after 2013, and they've come up with 1 death. They don't say how old the baby is. 1 death in February, 1 death in May. And if we go back to the original 2018 FOI, do we see any deaths in February or May? Let's have a look at February. There's a stillbirth that might have a tale of all of it on its own in terms of using the wrong codes. But in terms of deaths of early, late, or post-neonatal, no, there are none. There are none in February. And in May, what do we have here? We have another stillbirth, but we don't have any early, late, or post-neonatal. So according to the 2018 FOI, there are no deaths in the months of February and May that we see in the 2025 FOI received that's based on their reevaluation of their data through doing this thing that they're calling a manual count over various platforms. We'll read in detail the letter and what they said in a little bit. So the conclusion we draw from this is that the 2018 FOI is wrong, 100% wrong. Everything about it's wrong. Every death listed on it, even though it would seem to be much more comprehensively laid out. Look, you've got all these different sections here. And it's nearer the time. It's 5 years post the year in question, 5 years after 2013. But somehow we're being asked to believe that over 10 years after, so apparently they did this thing in 2023, and then it matches up with the Thirlwall document in respect of the indictment years of 2015 and 2016. Over 10 years after 2013, they managed to produce this, which is 1 death in February and 1 death in May in 2013, which aren't shown at all in the 2018 data. So this FOI response was completely 100% wrong. And we're meant to believe that and just accept that. Or should we be questioning the veracity of this 2025 FOI that Peter Alston received subsequent to allegedly Countess of Chester doing a kind of a recounting and a re-evaluation of the deaths, but it being done 10 years after the event rather than 5 years. 10 years in 2023. Peter receives this after an FOI request that he submits in early 2025. So there's more to say about that, but it's extraordinary, isn't it, that this, which looks much more comprehensive and more specific, is 100% wrong based on Countess of Chester's later evaluation of deaths in the neonatal unit, which gives deaths in February and May that didn't even appear on the 2018, and it shows none of the deaths that did appear, none of the 6 that did appear. So just to say again, if this was correct in totality, then it would have pretty much the same average number of deaths as the split between 2015 and 2016, which is 6.5, 8 in 2015, 5 in 2016, averaging out at 6.5 a year. I know you can't have 0.5 of a death, but 6.5 is the average. And here's 6 for 2013. So what's the truth? What is the truth of 2013? What's the truth of any of these years, to be honest with you? And this is one of the many reasons why I didn't want to let it go, and I wanted them to restate the data for all the deaths, to include late fetal loss and stillbirths, in this format, in the original format, which looks much more professional and comprehensive and detailed. I wanted them to restate that from, well, at least 2009 going up to the early 2020s. And it's when I did that that they've said, no, we're not going to entertain that request or any other ones or any of the outstanding ones. All these requests are vexatious now, and you're part of a campaign and people are giving you suggestions to do things, and that's all wrong, and we don't like you, and we're never going to speak to you again, type of thing. So I thought that was interesting. I'm just going to pause it a minute here. So this is the letter that Peter Elston received in response, to his FOI request. So he received this in the spring of 2025 after making the request in March of 2025. And it says here, because he's saying, well, why is the 2018 FOI data, why is it so different? They do not reconcile with the neonatal mortality data presented at the Thirlwall inquiry, that list of all the deaths, which also included 4 deaths that occurred up post-transfer away from CoCH, and the death in the maternity unit. So then Peter lists all the different reasons why they don't comport, and they're at odds with each other. You know, so he does all that. He's saying because at that point he hadn't received their revised data, so the only public document was that 2018 FOI, which was totally at odds with what Thirlwall came up with. So what they then sent alongside this response to Peter was this. So 2015, that's your total of 8 and 5. And these figures here for 2015 and 2016, they don't clash. They match with the indictment, and then they match with the Thirlwall document. They don't include, obviously, post-transfer deaths, but they match with the number of deaths that are stated in the Thirlwall document, which I could put up a bit later. If necessary, I'll have a think about whether I need to do that or not. But they just basically match with the indictment and match with Thirlwall about all the deaths that happened. 8 and 5. So where are we now? So their responses, the historical data requested in 2018, they're calling that historical data, and yes, it might be deemed as such, but when it was requested in 2018 was a lot nearer to 2015 and 2016 and 2013. It was a lot nearer in time than when they apparently did their rejig of it in 2023. But we'll go on to see what they actually say in full here. Their response. The historical data requested in 2018 sat across multiple platforms. I don't know what that means. Does anybody know what that means? Sitting across multiple platforms. And what's the relevance of that? What does it mean, and what's the relevance of it? We undertook, this is CoCH replying to Peter here, we undertook a detailed manual check across all platforms in 2023, which confirmed the inaccuracy of the 2018 FOI response. The data attached to this response is correct. The data, meaning that's the data they sent. It's the 2025 FOI. That's what they mean by that data. And where are we now? Please refer to page 1 of the attached Thirlwall inquiry report of NNU deaths linked to the Countess of the Chester Hospital Trust, as this provides a full explanation of the details of the deaths. And so what they're talking about there is, I just need to call that one up, so I need to pause this. So many people will have seen this, and it goes on to the other deaths. There's three images of this that I could load up, but that's what they're referring to in the letter there, that document with all the details, which is interesting because they got all the details of the ages of the baby and the gestation there. But they say later on that it's impossible to do it in their anti-vexatious letter to me when I'm asking for this, effectively this version of things for all the years and for the stillbirths. So what are they saying here? They're saying it sat across multiple platforms. So when they created this, it's because, and it's 100% wrong for the year 2013, 100% wrong. That's because it's set across multiple platforms. What does that even mean? What does it mean? I know it's words, but what's the meaning of them? We undertook a detailed manual check across all platforms. So there's multiple platforms and then there's all platforms. Are all platforms the same as multiple platforms, or are there more platforms that you'd need to add to the multiple platforms to create all platforms? I'm not being facetious. I just don't know what this language means, and I don't know what they're talking about, and I don't trust any of it. And I don't know what a manual check is. So what would be a manual check? Do they mean they have to go to physical notes rather than looking at data systems? What does it even mean? We don't know what that means. But whatever it means, it told them that the FOI response in 2018, which is this one, that's just for the 2013, it goes through from 2013, 14, 15, 16, and 17. That 2018 FOI runs from, it does this for every year, for every month, for every year, split up into all these sections from 2013 to 2017 inclusive. So back to their letter, and then they make reference to this here, which is the Thirlwall document. So what we have then, and they state, well, basically their sort of gross figures here in terms of they're not splitting it up, but they're splitting it up into months, 2015 and 2016, align with, and they do align with the Thirlwall document in all its sections. Right, so I'll leave it up there for the moment. Pause it. I'm back in the room. So this is page one of their long 6-page letter to me saying that, part of a campaign, people are making suggestions via YouTube channel. We don't want to hear from you anymore. We're not going to answer this question or any of the other ones. So they go to a specific, my original request, which is to look at a date range from January 2012 to December 2025. And what I'm asking here for, what I'm asking for is month by month data followed by year totals for the deaths in the CoCH, split up into early, late, post-neonatal, and also supply stillbirths. I don't mention late fetal loss, but there's no reason why they couldn't add that as well. So what I'm asking for here is that date range of years in this format, which they gave in 2018. So they gave that to Mr. Walid Aslam in 2018. But here, they can't do any of it anymore because their original response is, their original basic response to that request is simply that we've had too many requests from you. We're deeming you vexatious, or we're deeming the request vexatious. There's no justification for that. There's no justification for that because they've acknowledged here in the letter to Peter Elston that the data for 2015 and 2016 was totally incorrect. So I'm asking, well, let's have a look at all the years now set out in the original format. And that's what's caused them to deem that request vexatious. Why can't you do it? So back to the idea of 2013, how accurate is that? They're not being explicit in their letter to Peter. Where is it? They're only talking about, well, they actually say here, we confirm the inaccuracy of the FOI response in 2018. But they're not saying which years. Was it totally inaccurate? Well, according to the difference between that 2018 FOI with 6 deaths in 2013, which is almost the same as the average between 2015 and 2016, which is 6.5, that gets reduced down to 2, as I said at the beginning, in months. In February and May, it gets reduced down to 2 deaths that didn't even appear. Nothing in Feb, nothing in May. These 3 here are early, late and post, 3 zeros. Didn't even appear at all. And that's been achieved by what? Let me have a look. They've managed to do that by doing what? By doing this magical thing of doing a manual check. It's a manual check. Has made the difference, has made 100% difference in the original data given. Everything is wrong about it. There's not a single item of data in 2013 that's correct. And obviously there were many, many differences in 2015 and 2016, which is why Peter is the requester here in this letter. Peter's the requester there, Peter Alston. There are so many and he cites them here, all the differences, you know. And he also talks about which has always bothered me as well for years now, the death in August 2016. The death in August 2016. So what's noticeable about August 2016? Well, Lucy Letby is no longer on the unit. So let me call up another document for a minute. Recording is resumed. So what we've got here is the 2018 Walid Aslam FOI for 2016, split up into all these sections here. Let's cut it off at the top here, but this first column is late fetal loss, stillbirth, early neonatal, late neonatal, post-neonatal, and then this is all deaths for each month in the year of 2016. What do we notice about here? We notice a death here in August 2016 of a late neonatal death here. One late neonatal death in August 2016. And Peter makes note of that in his request to the Council of Chester, which results in him receiving this. Look at 2016 here is 0. So that death has disappeared. That death has disappeared. And let me pause it a minute. And I've pulled up here the section of the Thirlwall document, which ends there with baby P in June 2016. And obviously there's no mention of any death there in August. That's where all the records here of deaths in 2016 end for Thirlwall. So what happened to that August death? Did it happen at all? So just to go back, so where did it come from, this idea of the August death? Well, here it is, look, in the 2018 data, a late neonatal death. But it just disappeared. Did it happen? Did it happen at all? If it didn't happen, why and how would it end up there? This thing about multiple platforms and all platforms, what does that mean? What has that got to do with? How did they just magic it out of the air in this much more comprehensive way of presenting data, stipulating early, late and post-neonatal back in 2018, nearer the time it happened? But somehow doing this thing called a manual check makes it much more accurate, and obviously aligns it with the indictment and aligns it with, or produces stroke aligns it with the Thirlwall document. But just to reiterate, going back to 2013, they're telling us that everything here, literally every number here, well, I don't know about stillbirths, but let's just say everything to do with early, late, neonatal, post-neonatal, everything's wrong, 100% wrong. And we're meant to just accept that And they found out it was wrong. How did they find out it was wrong? Because they undertook a detailed manual check, and historical data is sat, it's sat past tense across multiple platforms. And then they did a manual check across all platforms. What are the platforms? What does it even mean? What are all the platforms? What are the multiple platforms? What does it mean to be sitting across them? Do they mean they're being duplicated? Are they suggesting that these 6 deaths that they say happened in 2013 didn't happen at all? That they just had been put in there in error? Or are some of these deaths post-transfer deaths? And if they are, there's a story behind those as well, then, isn't there? Is it not possible that if some of these are post-transfer deaths in 2013, some of these 6 either transferred to LWH or Arrow Park, Liverpool Women's Hospital, or Arrow Park or elsewhere, is it not possible that if these deaths existed in reality, that the deaths that happened post-transfer, if any of them were as a result of infection or poor treatment or bad treatment or medical negligence that happened at CoCH? We can't know, because all we end up with after this, looking across the multiple platforms and doing a manual check, so-called, is 2 deaths that are in months. And you don't know what the age of these babies are in 2013. 2 deaths happening in months that aren't even showing here. But I'm repeating myself now. Let me I'll come to the conclusion in a minute. I'm just going to pause it. Just to go back to another page of the vexatious campaign response letter that they sent to me. They've denied, and they're not going to respond to any of these other outstanding FOIs, which I think are all reasonable requests. And some of them did certainly come from suggestions of other content makers and commenters under videos that I've done on the channel. So this first one here is a request I make that they're not going to fulfill, not even going to attempt, because there's a blanket decision that this is vexatious in and of itself. And why would it be? So the Bliss reports for feedback from parents of babies treated on the neonatal unit at the trust. This comes from Operation Merlin Falcon's video of some time ago, where he noticed in a bit of in a video of the unit after they'd moved out of that unit, that he'd noticed that there was this box on the wall where you were meant to return these Bliss reports. So between us, and we looked into that a bit and what that means. I did an FOI to Bliss, and they wouldn't release any of the data. So this is feedback from parents about their experience on the neonatal unit during this period of time. It would have been vital to get that. It would have been very interesting to get that. And this has come from Operation Merlin Falcons initiating this. So I send that as an FOIs, but that in and of itself is being deemed vexatious, And I wasn't asking, obviously, it could be as redacted as it needs to be. But what was the response? So when I FOI'd Bliss, so I went into it to a degree that my understanding is that Bliss basically created a report that they then send back. They consolidate all the statements from the parents on these forms that are collated at CoCH. Bliss collect those. They create a report on the service as a whole with feedback from parents, which they then return and send to the CoCH, hopefully to improve the service. Now, Bliss won't give me anything at all. They just said, no, we don't send out those. That's a kind of between us and CoCH, and we certainly won't send you any of the any of the details of the individual parents. Not that I was wanting that, but it's more about what type of comments were being made. In other words, were we satisfied? Was it clean? What did we think of the staff, doctors, nurses, etc., everything, the environment? But they basically gave nothing. So that's an example of that. And this next one here, which they've deemed vexatious in and of itself as well, necessarily so, because everything is now vexatious, is the number of complaints made to PALS. That's patient liaison. So what does PAL stand for? I've forgotten what it stands for. I should know because I had a lot to do with it. Patient Advice and Liaison Service. Patient Advice and Liaison Service. So this was, and I'm very sorry, but I've forgotten which person commenting on one of the videos that I did suggested doing this FOI to do with PALS. And this is a problem for CoCH, that they say, oh, well, you're getting people suggesting FOIs you can do. And apparently that's not allowed, and it constitutes a campaign. And that's vexatious in itself. So Patient Advice and Liaison Service. So that's the kind of thing that, rather than going through an official complaints process, that's another route people can go. And then I've got a whole lot of stories I could tell about PALS, but that's another ball of wax. Very painful time dealing with them, and very, very dodgy organization and individual that ended up running it nationally. But that's for another time, maybe. I'm not sure I need to go there, but it's not related to this particular matter anyway. It's something else. But yeah, so, the complaints to PALS, for them to kind of field the complaint rather than going through some other process, between 2009 to 2020. The number of mothers that gave birth at the trust who received IVF or assisted reproductive technology as part of their pregnancy between 2009 2019, that's deemed vexatious in and of itself. That request, why would it be? It's pertinent. It's not been asked for before. That data isn't out there. The weekly number of babies treated on the NNU each year between 2019. Yeah, that was more wasn't a separate. That was just an addendum that I added, that if it was possible to get the data down to weeks rather than months. But I just said, is it possible to get that granular detail? But why that's vexatious, God only knows. Well, it obviously isn't, but they deem it so. And the final one here, there's other ones they've missed out here, but anyway, it's a full stop. It's a full stop for me doing any more FOIs. The infection control, anybody wants to try any of these yourself, that'd be great. If anybody wants to try any of these, if you think they're valuable or valid to try, if you think any of these other ones here are worth trying, then that would be great if you want to do it. This last one here that they itemize, and this isn't the full list of the outstanding ones anyway, they've just chosen a few. The infection control measures in place at the neonatal unit and the maternity unit between 2011 and 2021, 10-year period, and the dates of all outbreaks of pathogens across this time period, what was done to address the outbreaks, and how long each remedial action took to complete. Well, you'd hope there'd be something, they've got some record of that, but that again has been deemed a vexatious request as a total. They all are, basically. They say it's not me, it's the request, or it's the requests, plural, but it's obviously me, because it's all these, and there's no justification for that being deemed vexatious. This is getting quite long now. I'm going to come to the end soon. Just going to pause it. Yeah, so back to the first page of their rejection letter, as it were, of all outstanding FOIs. If anybody wants to try this, which is basically what we want, is a restatement in this format. I want a restatement in that format for the time period that I'm asking for. I mean, even if it didn't go up to 2025, but why not? Why not? Is it just asking for the world? They did it in 2018. They managed to have all this stuff across their multiple platforms or all their platforms. But now it's just impossible. They just say that's just vexatious to ask for it. But that's what I asked for from 2012 to 2025. But whatever anybody else wants to try a version of this, but to stipulate early, late, post-neonatal, and very importantly as well, to stipulate their stillbirths, because as we know, when they produced this in the 2025 response to Peter Elston, there's nothing about stillbirths here at all, or late fetal loss, but there's nothing about stillbirths, whereas back in 2018, they were able to do it. That's late fetal loss. This column here, stillbirths, they're able to do it there. But are they accurate? Are they accurate? So we've got this split problem now of people using stillbirth data, because it's all that's out there, from a 2018 FOI. So if somebody wanted to use the stillbirth, say if they wanted to use stillbirth data of 2018 FOI, they're going to look at this because this is the only thing that's out there. But as you see, this is in a document in which all those ones highlighted never happened. So why should we trust that column? Why should we trust that stillbirth column of the 2018 FOI that's out there? And that's the data being looked at for FOIs. And let's choose another year. So no, that's the so let's look at 2016. Yeah, this was the odd thing. So this column here, it's cut it off at the top. This column here that I'm going up and down with, that's the stillbirth column. It's gone down to 2. It's gone down to 2. The year before it was 12 for stillbirths, according to the 2018 FOI. This is 2018 FOI. The next year, 2017, goes up to 11, shoots up to 11, according to the 2018 FOI. But the 2018 FOI is capable of being 100% wrong in all other respects. So why would we trust the stillbirth data from it? Is that what they're asking us to do? And when you ask them, this is the result you get. You say it's a vexatious request, and everything else you've asked, those other ones I went through, they're all vexatious too. I think that might be the end of it now. I'm just going to check what other documents I did have potential to upload onto the screen. Let me pause it. Yeah, this isn't yet another page of CoCH's 6-page letter about why all the requests are vexatious here. And they do something which is completely a bit of gaslighting here. They're saying perinatal mortality data viewer from Embrace. They're saying, to the extent that the data you request is therefore already published or will be published in the future, the trust relies on you, basically saying you can look at Embrace. That's what they're saying here. But Embrace data for deaths is based on where the baby was born, not where the baby dies. Where the baby was born, not where the baby sadly passes away. If a baby passes away at whatever gestation and whatever age, whether it's early, late, or post neonatal, and they've got to know that. And I know that because I did an FOI to Embrace a long time ago, and it was more of it wasn't so much an FOI, it was just an email to them asking them how they collate the data and what it's based on. And they said it's based on where the babies are born. It doesn't tell you anything about where the baby, if a baby has very sadly passed away, where that happened. So this is a bit of misdirection and gaslighting from them here, because it's not going to tell me what we need to know, not going to tell us what we need to know. And this is just a bunch of other stuff that they're just basically saying. They're just saying why it's all I'm asking for it to be split into all these years, into all the sections that they were able to do it back in 2018 like that, but they can't do it anymore now. Because why can't they do it anymore? They just can't do it anymore. And they're talking about embrace. Well, so they're saying stillbirth data is routinely published by Embrace. Well, and they're saying that they're saying that they've got access to that stillbirth data. So why can't they just give it to me in totality? It's the historical data of the stillbirths. Because they had it back here. Look, stillbirths. Why can't they just do it? But they had it back here on a document in which all those yellow ones are 100% wrong. So why are we relying on that? So it's just a complete dog's dinner in terms of their response. They just don't want to reproduce this format for the time period, for the years concerned, including the indictment period and years before and year after, just simply with this data in it. They just won't do it. They won't do it. I don't trust that stillbirth data. Well, why would you if everything else is wrong? And they've said it's all wrong. They've said it's all wrong. Because that's what it ends up like 5 years later when they do this manual count. Anyway, I probably repeated myself a bit too much here, and it's got really quite long. So I'm going to end the recording now, and hopefully I'm doing this on StreamYard, and hopefully I can upload it to the channel and do that then. Yeah, so there we are. Thanks very much for listening, and take care, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.